This is it. This is the mock draft. Actually, our whole plan, not just a mock draft, for the one place that you have to know what you're doing if you're talking about Motor City, USA. Detroit Lions. How do they get forward on where they are with Goff, the acquisition they've made in the offseason? It is all Detroit all the time. Welcome to Lions Central here on Locked On NFL Draft.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Show. I am your host, former NFL and NFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. And of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Ryan Tracy from Rogue Analytics. And you can follow us on social media at Eric_Crocker, at Ryan Tracy NFL. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today, the Detroit Lions are on the clock, and we couldn't find anyone better than our guy, Matt Dery, the host of the Locked On Lions, to kind of assist us with this. But before we get into it, we're going to give some of our thoughts on the Lions, where they are, some moves that they've made so far this offseason to kind of improve, and then eventually we'll get to Mr. Dery there and get his thoughts on who they should take with the number 2 overall pick. But let's get into it, man. The Detroit Lions, a team that traded, the best player that they've ever had in franchise history, at least at the quarterback position. You have had Barry Sanders, also have Calvin Johnson. Yeah. But Matthew Stafford, a big kind of staple in the organization. What it means, and they shipped him off, and in return got Jared Goff, and he's kind of hanging on there. The season probably didn't go as well as they would like. I remember hearing the head coach Campbell kind of call Jared Goff out a little bit. And now, you see, they have one of the worst offensive teams just really in the league, especially at the receiver position. They're looking to continue to kind of get better. TJ Hawkinson, you talked about Swift, and you're like, man, I forget Swift is there. Terrific running back. They've had Williams there. But what do you think they need to do to kind of take that next step, Ryan?
I'm really excited for their draft. If you can't tell, I said mock draft in the intro because I'm pretty pumped up about where they are draft-wise and what their opportunity is. And yes, they need to improve their offense. But let's talk about points allowed. 31st in the league. It's not all offense. You got to do something to build up that defense too. And they've got some good players. I was high on Levi Onwuzurike when he came out. Not exactly an exemplary season last year. Let's hope that he can move forward. Akwara now, Harris on the edges. Do you try to upgrade that? Do you try to hit the middle tier, get some linebackers that can turn and run as well? I know Ansel and Barnes, okay, they can be what they can be, but you got to get more dynamic on the defensive side of the ball. They went out and made a couple of acquisitions, and I want to ask you, what do you think is the bigger impact? DJ Chark on the offensive side, they just brought in Mike Hughes literally tonight before we recorded this. They have Okudah on the other side. Like, how are you feeling about where they are on the edges at least?
I think first when you talk about, the cornerback position, they're going to have an opportunity to maybe upgrade, but we'll see where Okudah is, right? And I think that's what Mike Hughes is. I think the Mike Hughes signing is insurance for, Jeffrey Okudah because, at least I saw in the first game of the season against the 49ers, well, he ruptured his Achilles. He missed the rest of the season. And I think they were hoping for a big year out of Jeffrey Okudah because, this is also a guy who in the previous year, he missed some games, had some injuries, had some up and down play. And a lot of people are like, well, is this a bust? He was the number 3 overall pick. And now he missed a year. How is he going to return? I think Hughes is insurance for that. But they are kind of solid on the other side. You got Amani Aroye, cornerback, had a high interception total, did a terrific job of making plays on the ball. So at the very least, that your CB2 spot is solidified with him. And we'll see if he can even develop into even more than that. But there's going to be a lot that kind of, depends on the outcome of Jeffrey Okudah and how his rehab is doing. That's a serious injury he's coming off of. But you talked about Akwara and what he's done last year. Another guy missed a lot of games. And maybe some of their shortcomings in the season had to do a lot with the injuries. This is a guy who in 2020 had 10 sacks. Fast forward 2021, only plays 4 games, 1 sack in that game or in the 4 games combined. So That's not ideal. And I know we have been kind of mocking, edge rusher to them. whether it's Aiden Hutchinson, if he gets past Jacksonville, which in this scenario he hasn't. So Kayvon Thibodeau, I'd assume that that's kind of the guy that a lot of people are going to mock to him. But do you think that there's another direction they can go with? You talked about the receiver position. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's a terrific slot guy. And he's going to continue to develop into a high target guy. We'll see what happens there. DJ Chark paid him some good money coming from Jacksonville. He dealt with some injuries, but he's definitely a guy, long speed, stretch the field type guy. Can he be a high volume guy? And then Josh Reynolds. I think ideally maybe he's more of a wide receiver 4, but I think being a third option, I would not even third, a fourth option in his offense, I think that's fine because they got TJ Hawkinson. He's one of the best young tight ends in the league. So I really feel like there's some pieces here, but does it just come down to the quarterback position? You got Jared Goff there. He's a guy who, people forget about this, had a ton of success with the Rams in the sense of wins. He won a lot of games. After his rookie year, I don't think he won a game as a rookie, but after that, when Sean McVay showed up, high win totals each year, never had a losing season until last year with the Lions. How do they get better around him offensively?
That's my question too. Did McVay go back over to the Detroit Lions in the second year of that trade or something? Because if that didn't happen, then you ain't getting that Goff. I'm just telling you, that's not in the cards. So I'm completely with you. I think Chark is in for a rebound, to tell you the truth, coming off that disastrous monstrosity of a season with Urban Meyer running it down there in Jacksonville. I think he's ready to uplift himself a little bit. I think him and Amon-Ra St. Brown, I like that combination. Hawkinson obviously can move the ball. And it's nothing against Josh Reynolds. I agree with you. I think a 4 is about right. So you could add a weapon in there. There's a slot. That doesn't require a first-round pick, though. And they got 2 of them right now. So for me, it's where do you get the most impact? And that is either on the edge or at the corner spot if you want to bolster that group so that you can have some rotation. I lean towards the edge guy if that's the way it's going to roll. Obviously, that's what we've been mocking to him. Do you think we should change that up?
I don't think so, but we have someone that's going to be better suited to pick for the Detroit Lions when we come back. All right, so what's going on with them? Who are they going to draft? Matt Dery, host of Locked On Lions, he's going to talk to us about all that and more over the next 2 segments. But first, we want to talk to you a little bit about BetOnline. And it's that time of year again. It's March Madness. My team, UCLA, that's like my team. And then you got Arkansas. I'm an honorary fan of them since I live here, but they're all making it to the Sweet 16, and all the details on Sweet 16 college basketball, the March Madness that's going on, BetOnline, that's your number one spot for it. From the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season, and it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head over right now to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. As BetOnline, where the game starts. We want to thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen every single day. And make sure you're following Locked On NFL. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NFL every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. Yes, that includes the Locked On 49ers with myself and Brian Peacock. That also includes the Locked On Chiefs with Ryan Tracy. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. All right, joining me now is Matt Dery, host of Locked On Lions. And I think this is kind of a big year for the Detroit Lions. I know a lot of people are trying to figure out which direction are they going in. They just, traded away Matthew Stafford. He's been one of the staples of this organization for about a decade or a little bit over that. And then now you kind of transition into a kind of a rebuild type situation. Is that how the Detroit Lions and their front office are looking at it, Matt?
Yeah, Eric, this is year 2 of the rebuild, obviously. And they pretty much started from scratch last year with the hiring of Brad Holmes and of course, Dan Campbell. They have changed the culture. I know it's such an old bit and such a cliche, culture change, but it really did need to take place after Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn burned the Allen Park facility to the ground. They were a complete and utter disaster. Sheila Ford Hamp took over as owner and knew that one thing they had to do was do a culture change and bring in people that were going to be positive, want to bring in a good staff and players that all kind of mesh together. And despite winning 3 games, that's it last year, they did do that. They played hard. Dan Campbell improved as a coach. Brad Holmes improved as a GM. The staff was good. Players got better as the year went on. So now the question is, what's the next step? And obviously it starts at some of the major positions on the field: quarterback, rush end, free safety, who the receiver is going to be. But at least right now, who the coach is. They're not going to make any changes. The entire staff is back, except for one guy, Anthony Lynn, who was basically broomed out during the season. And they bring in an offensive coordinator in Ben Johnson, who was a tight ends coach who was extremely popular in the locker room. So they feel like they're on track.
What's the feel with the fan base, at least the optimism level, after kind of the initial wave of free agency? Do a lot of fans feel like they made enough moves or not enough moves? Did they address the areas where people felt like were weaknesses to where they can go into the draft and maybe just go best player available?
I think the fan base is happy with the progress. I think they like where this is heading. There are no stars here. It's very difficult for a fan to go, all right, what jersey am I going to buy?
Yeah.
Amon-Ra St. Brown is probably the closest thing. And I think if the Lions, and I know we'll talk about this later, but I think if the Lions drafted Aiden Hutchinson at 2, that would be a fan favorite move. And it would be a move that would be heavily endorsed by the fan base. But after one playoff win in 60 plus years, I mean, you've won. That's Eric. It's impossible. One playoff win since 1957. Yeah. That's impossible. I mean, even the worst of the worst organizations, Jacksonville, Cleveland, bad organizations have at least scratched more than that. But the Lions are right there at the bottom, man. It's sad, but this fan base is great. They continue to come back year after year. They continue to listen to my show. They are excited a little bit, and now it's a matter of building on it. But they like Dan Campbell. The players seem to like him, so there's a nice vibe again at the Allen Park facility.
You talked a little bit about there not being any real stars, and last season, I thought was a good thing. They drafted Penei Sewell at number 7 overall. How has that draft class, the 2021 draft class, kind of panned out for Detroit so far?
I'll say this. Excuse me. I agree with you about Penei Sewell. I thought he was very solid right tackle all year and did a nice job and played well and got better. They had tried him at left tackle at the start of the season when Taylor Decker was hurt, and it was a slow start, but then he got better, and then it was like, oh, just leave him there. Well, then he moved back to right tackle, and he did great. The offensive line is good. It's real good. So
okay,
Jared Goff is going to have some protection. If you're doing one of these 7-round mocks or one of these crazy things, I would not mock an offensive lineman to Detroit at all. They don't need any. They've got good depth there. They've got backups. So I think they're set on the O-line, and starts with Sewell. Certainly the St. Brown pick in round 4 was tremendous. I mean, who would have thought he would have had the kind of breakout year that he did after being bypassed by so many teams? He's a wide receiver that you hold on to and you build around. The two guys in the middle of that, before he was taken, Levi Onwuzurike and Aleem McNeil, were fine. I think Onwuzurike was a disappointment as a D tackle. McNeil as a plugger at a nose was pretty decent. And some of the other guys have potential, including linebacker Derek Barnes, who struggled if you look at PFF scores. Yeah. But I think he's a really young, just scratching the surface linebacker. So I think all in all, and you throw in a running back like Jamar Jefferson, who's likely going to be on the team again in the 7th round, I think they did all right. And Melifonwu, Ife Melifonwu, the cornerback, is a keeper. So they did okay. I think that's how Brad Holmes did it with the Rams. And I think that's how he's doing it here. He's putting good depth together. So now this draft class will be a big one too. And he's got 5 picks in the top 100.
And you talked a little bit about, kind of the cornerback and, Ife, who they drafted there out of Syracuse. But they have a couple other cornerbacks there. And, Jeffrey Okudah, he's a guy who's the number 3 overall pick. Obviously, we know he's kind of dealt with injuries. You have Aroye, who, he had a big interception total type season. So what's the outlook on the secondary there? Is that an area where you feel like, oh, no, we still got to throw resources to improve? What's the outlook of Jeffrey Okudah kind of moving forward, a guy who missed a lot of games as a rookie or missed some games as a rookie and also struggled a little bit with kind of, I think it wasn't quite the right system for him, for who he was and what made him good at Ohio State. They started asking him to kind of shadow certain guys around and follow guys into the slot. I didn't think that was necessarily a strength of his. and you were looking to see, okay, well, how's it going to improve in a new system or a new, got a new coaching staff over in 2021 where he gets hurt week 1 and misses the year. So what's the outlook on Okudah and the secondary?
Well, I'll say this, Eric, you're spot on. And as a guy that played the game, you stick a corner at number 3 in the draft, he better be a stud. Jeffrey Okudah is not a stud. And then you had him in a man-only system under Matt Patricia, and it was a disaster.
Yeah.
So then he got hurt. Then he got hurt last year and missed the entire season. So he's way behind, but he's so young. I'm not giving up on him by any stretch of the imagination. What I like that the Lions have done is they've added some pretty good depth at corner. An undrafted rookie free agent, Jerry Jacobs, last year was a really nice surprise, a nice pickup by Brad Holmes. You throw in Amani Oruwariye. They just signed Mike Hughes, who's off a good year with the Chiefs. So they've got some nice depth at corner if they can get Okudah back. And I think they're going to be okay in that department in the secondary. My biggest thing is with them, they need another safety, a good one. Will Harris stinks. I don't think he's very good. Maybe he's a slot corner, a third or fourth corner on your team. I'm not putting him at the starting safety again next to Tracy Walker. That then opens up the discussion about what if Hutchinson goes 1 to Jacksonville? Would Kyle Hamilton be in play for the Lions at 2? And I say absolutely, because they didn't get Marcus Williams, the safety out of New Orleans, in free agency. You ask why? He's the perfect fit for the Lions. He's what they needed. He's got Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell ties with New Orleans when those guys were there, yet they didn't go after him. Now, maybe they did, and they offered less than Baltimore did. So you have to start thinking, is that a Kyle Hamilton pick at 2 if Hutchinson's off the board? They need another safety. So you asked the question about the secondary. There's your answer. It's, to me, free safety first and foremost. Tracy Walker re-signed, decent player at a decent number, and they like him, and he's another culture fit guy, loves being in Detroit. But I think that second safety spot is something they have got to address.
You touched a little bit on the number 2 overall pick, and we're going to get into that next. What should the Detroit Lions do at number 2 with a quarterback being played? We're going to talk about that and much more. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit about our folks over at Rock Auto. All right, with the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it is now impossible for your local chain store to stock all the parts that you need. And why endure often pointless, seamlessly intimidating questioning about the vehicle that you have and wait for a person behind the counter to order the parts that are in their computer, choosing only the brand that their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. So utilize that. All right, save time and money using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more on the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? All right, rockauto.com is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer, and they have everything you need, from brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpets. All right, so go over right now to rockauto.com and see all the parts available for your car or truck. And when they ask, where you found them or how you found them, right in Locked On. All right, amazing selection of reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. All right, once again, we're back, and I'm joined by Matt Dery. He's the host of the Locked On Lions. And now we're getting into it. What everyone wants to know, especially the Lions fans, and y'all on the clock. Aiden Hutchinson's gone. All right, the Jaguars took Aiden Hutchinson at number 1. So Lions on the clock at pick 2, and there's a few different directions. One, you kind of threw me off there. Wasn't expecting to hear Kyle Hamilton's name come up. Also, I don't know how these, or front offices are going to view these pro days, but maybe a guy like Malik Willis, who it seems like his name just keeps kind of climbing a little bit more and more throughout this offseason. Could they say, we feel like maybe he's the future, at the quarterback position, or no, we'll continue to build this team around Jared Goff, or do they go edge? There's guys like Kayvon Thibodeau. Some people really like Trayvon Walker, even that high. There's Jermaine Johnson. So the floor is yours, Matt Dery. What will the Detroit Lions do at pick 2?
Let me say this, E. I listened to you and Ryan talk about Hutchinson going number 1 on your latest mock show. And let me just get this out of the way, because you said Hutchinson's gone, so I can't even talk about it. But I will say this. if Evan Neal or the kid from NC State, the tackle, go to Jacksonville at number 1. If.
Which is very possible.
Right. I think the Lions are going to take Hutchinson. I think they're going to run the card up to the table quickly, to the podium quickly, because number 1, it's a need. And number 2, this organization needs to sell tickets. Okay. They struggled last year with attendance. Like I said, the fan base is great, but many folks are not going to hike downtown to see that product again unless there's something to see. And the quarterback doesn't sell. The past quarterback did. Fans still love him. People are wearing Detroit Rams shirts. People are wearing Stafford Rams jerseys in this town. The new quarterback, no one's on board. I mean, they're on board. They like him. He's a nice guy, but no one's going downtown to see him play.
Right.
So with Hutchinson, you got the local angle. He's a Michigan guy. The Wolverines are very popular in this area. And remember, Sheila Ford Hamp, and I've said this on my show, the owner of the Lions and her husband, Steve, they live in Ann Arbor. They are Wolverine people. So put all that together. She's still calling the shots. She's still the owner. She could whisper in Brad Holmes' ear, take 97 in the maize and blue jerseys. That's very possible. I think that will happen if he's there. Now, in your scenario, what do the Lions do? And I know you guys mocked Kayvon in your latest. Here's my red flag on him. Dan Campbell and the Lions, Brad Holmes. I even heard Sheila on DetroitLions.com yesterday. We want football players. We want people that love football. Well, what's the big knock on Kayvon? Doesn't love football.
They're questioning it for sure.
So that may be just a knock that's false. And he has said that he said at the combine, and he was great in his interviews, I love football. I don't know where this is coming from, but he has other business ventures he's interested in. He's got a cryptocurrency he's into or whatever that is. So that's fine.
The questions are going to come because of how he answered some of those questions during the championship week.
No question.
Coming out and saying, well, I didn't want to go to Alabama because they're just all about football. And I went to Oregon because I'm thinking of life after football. And that's fine. That is 100% okay. But if you're being picked in the top 5 and top 10 and teams are investing millions and millions and millions of dollars into you, they want to know that you're a little bit more all into football, at least for the first part of your career. And then, after that, it's whatever. So I think that's where he kind of gets that whole thing about where his mindset is.
And I don't think that meshes with Dan Campbell. And I'm not saying Dan Campbell won't like the kid. I'm not saying the Lions won't go to the Oregon Pro Day. I'm not saying they won't fly Kayvon in and interview him. I think they'll do their due diligence. But to me, Kyle Hamilton and Trayvon from Georgia are more fitting based on the football fit and the culture fit with this organization. The Lions need, to me, Brad Holmes, he stocked up on D linemen last year, bringing Michael Brockers in, re-upping Romeo Okwara, drafting two of his top three picks were D linemen last year. Why wouldn't he add another one? Walker can play everywhere, inside and outside. Is he the second best player in this draft? I don't know. But I think they would take Walker over Kayvon just based on football fit. Kayvon Thibodeau, they were at the combine. The kid ran through 2 drills and left town. To me, the Lions will never say that publicly, but I don't think they like that. That's not what they're trying to build. They talk about football fit, culture fit, football players, tough, grit. And I just don't know if that's the fit. I think Kyle Hamilton could be the fit too. Too many people out there are saying, not all Lions scouts, but people I've talked to close to the team, they like him. And he's a football player and could be the most talented player in this draft when it comes to grading out. So there's an opening at free safety, a big opening. If they can move Tracy Walker to strong, they can move him to free, they could play him together. They did not, like I said earlier, did not sign Marcus Williams. So there's a giant opening right now. It's a for sale sign for free safety. So if that kid's there at 2 and Hutch is gone at 1, I could see that being the pick, no question.
All right, so is that who you're picking?
If I had to go the safe route, if you're telling me Hutchinson went 1, yes, I would say Kyle Hamilton 2. Yes.
All right, Kyle Hamilton at pick 2 to the Detroit Lions. Now, I do want to ask you one more question. We talked a little bit about the quarterback position, things like that. Do you think that Malik Willis is someone that potentially can climb up a little bit and he's someone that they'll like, or maybe someone else like Cody Pickett, former Washington Husky quarterback.
Yeah.
Kenny
Good
Pickett.
call. I knew you were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett with his small hands. Somebody, do you think they'll view him as maybe a number 2 overall pick? Because, again, kind of touched on a little bit, but it does seem like Malik Willis is someone he's just getting a little bit more and more steam. Where the more people see him, the more people see him throw. They like him a little bit more. Is 2 still a little too rich for you?
There's so much steam around Malik Willis at 2, and I think it's just a lot of smoke. I really do. They had him at the Senior Bowl. They had him for a whole week. They coached him. They liked him. He did a great job. He had a great week. And all of a sudden it went from, man, Malik Willis had, let's be honest, there were some games he played this year at Liberty where he threw for less than 200 yards. And we're not talking about him playing in the SEC or the Big Ten. There were games he missed a lot of throws. Yeah. And then all of a sudden at the Senior Bowl, he's playing well. And I was like, oh my gosh, could he move up to number 2? 2? If he was this good, why are all these NFL teams right now acquiring garbage at the veteran level? If Malik Willis is the real deal, would the Pittsburgh Steelers have gone out and given Mitch Trubisky 2 years? Would the Atlanta Falcons have just signed Marcus Mariota? If this quarterback class was all that, these teams would have just waited and drafted their guy at a minimum salary and had him for 5 years. So to me, I think these teams are all going, this class stinks. So we got to do something at the veteran level. Now, Malik at 9 in your mock to Seattle, that I could see. At 2 to Detroit, he's not going to play this year. So you're going to draft somebody at 2 that's going to hold a clipboard all year? The Lions are committed to Jared Goff this year, Eric. They are. So I don't see him playing. Now, could they put a little package together like Trey Lance had at the beginning of the year with the Niners? I know you follow them closely where, hey, let's bring Malik in on 3rd and 1 and have him run a little RPO or something. I could see that. But Jared Goff, at least for this season, is the Lions guy and a leader in that locker room, and I don't see them using the 2nd pick on a quarterback. Kenny Pickett, no way. Yeah. Willis, a far shot maybe. Let's see how he does in his pro day too on Tuesday before we crown this guy.
Definitely, man. But Matt Dery, man, appreciate you, coming on and chopping it up with us about the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions at pick 2 select Kyle Hamilton. He is now off the board. And when we come back on tomorrow's episode of Locked On NFL Draft, we'll have John Harris from the Houston Texans. He'll be picking for them. And a couple other guys from the Houston Texans. We'll see how they do and who they select. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On NFL Draft. Thank you for making us your first listen. And for your second listen, make sure you listen to Locked On 49ers with myself and Brian Peacock. But until then, we are out.